Okay, we're live.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the September 20th Special Districts Advisory Committee meeting. Welcome to the winter time. There will be a tour afterwards for anyone who is interested. Go ahead and call the meeting to order and ask for roll call.
Kimberly Corner,
Present.
Jack Beebe is absent, Ann Baldridge is absent, Paul Bushy,
Here.
Jeff Beacon is absent, James Gordon is absent, Diane Hansen is absent, Al Lau.
Here.
Hector Martinez. Dave McQueen.
Present.
Marty Miller is absent, Mark Roback.
Here.
Joel Scalzitti is absent, Mike Sims,
Here.
Oliver Smith.
Here.
There is a quorum with 8 members present.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez, will you please stand by?
My pleasure. Please stand, hand over your heart, ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start with agenda review. I do believe everything on the agenda is ready to be discussed today and no changes by staff or anyone present that I'm aware of. Okay, we will now move on to item number 3, which is open expression for any member of the public who would like to address the committee on any topics not a part of the agenda. Is there anyone online who would like to speak?
None.
No, thank you. Anyone in the room? Does not look like it. All right. With that, we are on to consent. We have one consent item included in your packet. These are minutes of June 21st. Special District Advisory Committee would entertain a motion on the minutes.
Move for approval. Second.
First, Mr. Martinez, second, Mr. Bushy. Any discussion? Okay, we do not need a roll call, we can, or do we? I mean,
No roll call.
no roll call, all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, item passes. And we are now on to our first item, which is business. The current work plan update on high priority projects, including the MSR, wholesale water agencies, healthcare districts, and SDAC. No lack of work right now. Mr. Kate.
Good morning, everybody. Chris Kate, LAFCO Consultants. Just to give a brief update on the County Water Authority and NWD wholesale MSR that we're working on. Since we last met, we are still working with our other consultant, Dr. Michael Hanneman, on a lot of the background research on the documents. A lot of the work has been trying to keep up with some of the work that's going on at the County Water Authority currently, obviously with the votes on the upcoming rates and some of the movement happening at the County Water Authority in terms of pushing back their long-range financing plan by a year. They're producing a 5-year outlook to go along with talking with some of the rating agencies as well. A lot of these things are moving very quickly, and we're trying to keep up with that and understand that. We do have a ad hoc working group made up of various GMs from across the region, including County Water Authority. We haven't met in a couple of months. We are still trying to prep some work plans to bring back to that committee. So our hope is by in the coming month or so, after working with Dr. Hanneman behind the scenes, we're able to come back and bring together. We still have a timeline of hoping to have a draft sometime before the end of the calendar year, early 2025, to bring back and work through with the agencies. But a lot of the work right now is still behind the scenes. We are going to be in a point in time where, in talking with the work group, we're going to have to make some cutoff decisions, because there is some work being done at CWA that coincides with the work that we're doing. And unfortunately, we're not in a position, I think, to wait until that work is completed at the Water Authority before we move forward our MSR. Perfect example is the long-range financing plan that's going to be delayed by a year and will not be done until after the next rate setting process, which won't be until June of next year. And so we're going to have to make some strategic decisions as an organization and how we're going to move forward and make recommendations and conclusions with really not a holistic picture of what's happening at CWA or MWD. So it's just one of those weird positions, spots that we're in, where we're going to have to end the analysis and just end it and communicate that there are things outstanding still that we just haven't been allowed time to talk to. So that's where we're at currently. But I think there's going to be kind of a fast pace between this last quarter of the calendar year and putting together the information before administrative draft is completed. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
We have questions.
Mr. Rivett.
Right in the middle.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. So we were, as in LAPCO, the Water Authority is using Michael Henneman by choice?
The laughter is using Dr.
So my impression of Dr. Henneman's analysis he did for the Water Authority and Rainbow and Fallbrook, that whole dynamic.
For the water, he was.
Well, no,
Okay.
well, everybody agreed to use Henneman for that. That was
Right.
a compromise, if whatever, how they came up with it. Anyhow, my kind of observation of that analysis that he did was more academic than I think practical or certainly businesslike. And I think when we're looking at things, the LAPCO that is, we're looking at a business model, and that's primarily, we're trying to figure out the most efficient way to deliver government's resources, correct? And that's really our mission, right?
It's a balance, and we're also not just looking at the water, we're looking at NWD as
No,
well.
I get it.
It has a specialty in both, understanding of both, and there are some interplays on there, but I think to get to your points about kind of what are the practical implications or the issues that need to be addressed within our MSR, that's why we have the work group and the feedback that we got, whether it's issues related to governance, finances, fixed costs, variable costs. Those are issues that we, from a practical perspective, we're going to have to weigh in on during the course of MSR, which I think there's a balancing act between some of the, I don't mean to say this in a way, but theoretical from a document perspective to a real world implication of that. And I think that's where the work group is going to come in and help provide that feedback, real world feedback to us on how we structure our recommendations.
Yeah, because we don't need anything fully academic, we need
Correct.
something more business focused.
Correct.
Right.
Exactly. But there are some theories that I think are at play, whether it's from a governance model. I think you can call that some of that theoretical as well too, how you deal with that. Thank you.
I guess I have a comment too. I agree with having a cutoff point, right? Agencies are dynamic right now. The long-range financing plan is delayed because they're going through a comprehensive rating review with the agencies.
Yeah.
That in and of itself should yield a treasure trove of information that's useful. But if you wait for that and then you wait for the long-range financing plan, if you wait for the deals to go through on the transfers, but yet they're getting sued by the Bureau, you could be waiting decades. And so I do believe there are a lot of folks waiting for this to be done, Water Authority itself included, and that there does need to be like I think you called it a cutoff decision point. Absolutely 100% support that, because that is one of the things it's ever changing, right? And so you've got to just take the best that you have right now. Because I think we were told the long-range financing plan isn't even gonna be out this time next year. Well, it'll be here this time next year.
Yeah.
So I just want to state my support for that.
I will say, just respond. I think you're absolutely right. The 5-year outlook with the rating agencies is going to be a treasure trove, and part of me wants that to happen first, so we have that information
Yes.
to develop the MSR, and depending on the schedule on that and when that's released, and you would know that's on the board how they're producing that. Are they going to be working with the ad hoc finance group or not on developments? How public they are? I'm hesitant. I will say I'm hesitant to finish a document before that comes out because it will say so much in there.
I agree, it's almost like it is an analysis of the water party's finances, right? And talk about a business model is what they utilize for their debt, it should be something we could.
It's going to be very official because it's going to the rating agency, so
Yes.
they can't, there's no maneuvering within that document at all, so. Yeah. I think
Have another comment, oh, and Mr. Lau?
Yeah, just one question. So with kind of, in terms of, I agree with you, I think it's important to look at the 5-year financing plan, long-range finance plan, because I think it does provide a lot. So a couple of things. Question one is, can our process and their process be in parallel? So maybe there's information feedback loop that can help at least with the development of the MSR. That's my question.
Yeah.
And the second part of that, do we have any plan on having a third-party business consultant to also help us review the long-range financing plan from that perspective? That might be a good idea.
Sure.
I get you rely on the advisory committee, but again, just from a perception point of view, having a third-party business analysis might not be bad. Just a thought.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. I don't know the answer to your second point. I don't know the answer to that question. That's something we can take back and have a conversation about. I am curious with the 5-year analysis for the rating agencies, what that looks like, the recommendations that come from that, which I think would even be potentially further evidence to have some type of consultant that reviews that. The long-range financing plan, until that comes out later in the calendar year 2025, I'm not sure what we do with that following what happens with MSR. And I don't know from a time period standpoint too, by the time that's released, are we still going through the hearing process for the MSR as well? There could be an interesting dynamic that exists on that. So put that back in my mind. To your first point on the timeline working with CWA on this, yes, we're going to be working with CWA to figure out, okay, what is your timeline with the agencies to develop that document? When can we get some of the data that you're looking at to be included that comes to us? We'd love to see that. That's a conversation we'll be having with the management at CWA.
So on the general managers review of the water authority, is that what I heard? There's a committee set up?
We have an ad hoc group for LAFCO development.
LAFCO.
Correct. That is going to be reviewing various topics of the scope of work, for lack of a better word.
So how many GMs are on that committee?
We have 9, I want to say GMs, 9 or 10 GMs. And
It's all GMs.
Correct. And the water authority is there.
Agreed.
Yeah, Dan's on there as well.
So we've got a water model that's been developed over 100 years, give or take, right? So and there's a lot of things about that model because it's so dated. It's dated.
What do you mean by model? Sorry, I apologize.
So, well, for example, we have 24 water agencies. In
Oh, the
county.
governance model.
Right.
Okay.
No. Well, yes and no, yeah. But, they grew up and, as San Diego County grew, so we have a model that's been developed that's not the most efficient. So what I want to make sure, whatever we do with the water authority, is thinking outside the box. Rethinking this, whatever is an antiquated model, to deliver water the most efficient way possible to the ratepayers of San Diego County. That's what we need to be doing.
And that has been a conversation for the race as well too. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Kim. Just simple question based, I'm not dialed into this the way some of the folks on the committee are, but What do you anticipate the timeline to finish this MSRs? You know,
Yes.
I know you want to drop dead date, if you said that I missed it, what do you?
We don't, I mean, the promise that we've been trying to make, because it's a priority, is to have a first draft completed by the end of the calendar year. That's been our hope, since we closed with attachment.
This calendar year?
Correct.
But that doesn't look like it's gonna happen now.
It could go into the first quarter of 2025, because there's so many moving parts right now, especially at CWA. That's where it's somewhat difficult to time, because some of this information is pretty vital to the work that we're doing. And I would really hate to have us release a draft and then not having all the information at hand, especially something as important as providing financial data to rating agencies. I think it's extremely important to have. And so we're kind of behind a little bit of an 8-ball with them, because we're somewhat dependent upon that data to help with our analysis. I would hate to drop something and have that drop the next month or 2 months after that and not have that for our document. So, but to my larger point is, we do have to have a drop point, because there could be some decisions in the pipeline for their agency that we just can't simply wait on, because then we'd be waiting forever.
Right.
So I think there are some pros and cons and some structural elements that I think we need to do our work. Others, I think we can comment on or provide some type of asterisk, for lack of a better term, in terms of, hey, these things are in the queue. These are maybe some recommendations around that, should you come across those decision points as an agency.
Thanks, Chris. Seems like realistically it should be calendar year 25 by year end, based on when this information comes out. I agree. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wonder, because of the potential delays in particularly the water aspect, why aren't you going after healthcare first? Since you know the water is gonna take you longer time to get the information you want to start with.
I think Joel will talk about that. I am not focused on healthcare, so I know there's other team that's focused on the healthcare aspect of it. So I think there is a dual track to that. I can have Joel speak to that. Absolutely.
Is the MSR gonna look at raw water quality into the region? That's something that the GMs have been spending a lot of time talking about recently. PFAS, algal blooms, real-time monitoring of raw water. Is that something that's in the MSR?
This is the first I've heard of it as been raised, so I can talk to him about that.
Okay.
And I'll make a note of that. That's the first time that's been raised to us, so I can figure out how we can potentially look at that.
I can follow up.
Yeah, please do. Absolutely.
Okay. Any other comments on water before we move on to all the other special districts? Are you also doing healthcare?
I am not, no.
You are not. Okay.
That'd be too much for.
Chris is a one-trick pony, so.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank
you.
Hi, so good morning. My name is Joelle Barilla. I'm the newest analyst to LAFCO. So I just started last month, and so happy to be here to present my first presentation with the Coastal Districts Advisory Committee. So I will cover the healthcare MSR and also the SDAC MSR. So I'm going to highlight some key milestones and upcoming goals on kind of ideal draft deadlines. So the first update I'm going to give is the healthcare districts MSR. To start with some context, we launched this project in July 2023 by introducing the MSR process to the CEOs of Fallbrook, Grossmont, Palomar, Tri-City healthcare districts, and the 4 healthcare districts. So from August to September 2023, we engaged with stakeholders, including the Hospital Association of San Diego, the County of San Diego, to discuss the MSR process and plan the data collection phase. Our outreach efforts continued through December 2023, featuring staff attendance at public meetings across all 4 healthcare districts. These sessions were essential to gathering feedback, encouraging engagement, and making the process as inclusive as possible. We did receive positive feedback, and the districts do want to participate in the process. So by the end of December of last year, we began searching for a consulting firm to support the next phase of the project. And so in early 2024, after meeting with 2 leading consulting firms, we selected Progressive Healthcare. By June 2024 this year, we finalize the scope of work and formalize our agreement with them. So we've decided to do this into two-phased approaches. So part one, which is already underway, will involve a macro analysis covering baseline topics such as demographics, service functions, including capacities, demands, and performance, and finances. This report will follow a standard municipal service review format and include written determinations required by statutes, satisfying the 5-year requirements for all 4 agencies. So then part 2 will involve a microanalysis that will draw on the baseline data to focus on current and emerging community healthcare needs and opportunities to better align district boundaries and resources accordingly. So since June, the consultants and LAFCO have conducted kickoff meetings with each district in conjunction with beginning the data collection phase. So looking ahead, Progressive Healthcare will conduct on-site meetings and develop preliminary analysis for phase 1. LAFCO staff will concurrently begin preparing other sections of the MSR, and we are steady progress to anticipate having the first draft by June of 2025, so next year. So this is the first update, and then I'm going to give the second update, which is on the SDAC MSR. So, Kristen, do you want to do questions first?
Yeah, any questions on healthcare MSR?
Yes, kind of a follow on my previous question, since there seem to be very recognized timeframes for getting the information necessary on the water MSR. Is there any benefit to expediting the healthcare, putting resources into the healthcare MSRs in front of the water, and then reassigning those resources when the water information is available?
Yeah, so I'll just jump in on that. So we are somewhat looking at the resources. So Joelle, Michaela, and Adam Wilson are assigned to the healthcare district MSR. Chris Kate, Michael Hanneman, and Priscilla are coordinating the CWA Metropolitan. So we've got resources going at both. The commission has made a decision that both are their equal priorities, and SDAC coming in number 3. So certainly, Member Smith, I hear what you're saying about, well, if the timing of the water authority item is going to be a bit long in the tooth, why don't we redirect resources? Well, we've already done that, but it's certainly on our mind, and perhaps as we go forward, some more adjustments will be made. But right now, we've kind of got 2 teams tackling both projects at the same time, and you'll hear a little more about SDAC or 3 projects at the same time.
Just wanted to ask if ambulance patient offload times is factored into that MSR with the healthcare districts, and how they collaborate with hospitals themselves and fire agencies and transport agencies, because that's a really big problem in the county that needs to be creatively looked at.
Thank you.
And there are partnerships in the zone I work in where, and we've spoken about this,
yeah,
where some creative things have been taken on, and so far so good. They seem to be working, but I think that's a model that could spread throughout the county. Thank you.
I'm going to defer to Priscilla.
Thank you. Yeah, Chief, I appreciate you bringing this up. It's definitely been an important topic since we've had that conversation where you brought this to our attention. So Adam and I have made sure that in each of our kickoff meetings, we've made it a priority to mention this issue and ensuring that they know that it's on our mind and that we want to kind of dig into the topic more. So I don't have a preliminary analysis on it, but it's definitely a part of the conversations. So it won't get forgotten. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks.
So in recent memory, the 2 issues regarding hospital districts, I remember getting calls here, actually, the water district about prenatal care being offered out of agency. And then the second one was another hospital district outsourcing the management. Are those topics going to be addressed and formalized in this MSR?
Definitely the idea of shared services are always part of the MSR process. And so we'll definitely probably touch on it. The depth of it, I'm not too certain. Maybe Keene has an idea of how we'll, kind of dig into it, but it will definitely be mentioned as part of the MSR. Absolutely.
Right, we are now on to SDAC.
All right, so moving on to SDAC. So we've made steady progress with the initial phase. Our key milestones include meeting with SDAC staff. So we met with their former CEO, and then we did have another meeting with their newly appointed CEO and staff. And with that, our consultant, Bill Fulton, has been diligently working on his deliverables, which focus on reviewing the agency's housing, transportation, and climate adaptation functions. So staff are working closely with Mr. Fulton, and as we prepare for the data collection phase, which we expect to extend to calendar year 2025, this phase will be crucial for gathering necessary information to inform our analysis and recommendations. And so that is the update I have so far for SDAC. Any questions?
Has there been an MSR done on SDAC before?
There has not.
Yeah, I can't remember that ever.
No, this is going to be a new one for us. So we're excited to kind of learn more about the agency. You'll recall it came forward by one of our commissioners who requested that we add it onto our work plan. So that's been adjusted, and I'll touch a little bit, or I'll just mention actually in my next update on the study schedule that it is now part of the study schedule. It has been prioritized as number 3, and so it'll be a new process for us, but we've our consultant, Bill Fulton, will kind of help us kind of understand the dynamics at SDAC and the municipal services that are so important that they deliver to the county. And just as a brief note, just for some context, so it kind of came up as part of the Escondido MSR, where LAFCO had made a recommendation that we recognize that Escondido is going to be serving as this urban center in the years to come, as we kind of see growth and orient growth in that region. And so when we talked about that, one of the commissioners mentioned, well, what's the interplay between SDAC and LAFCO, and what are the roles that we play? And we talked about the Bill Fulton report, the regional growth management report, and that's when that came out, and prioritizing an informational report on how the regional planning agencies, the County of San Diego, SDAC, and LAFCO orient growth throughout the region. And so the commission then decided to put it on our work plan, and now we're prioritizing it. But to your comment, Chair Thorner, it is the first time that we're going to be assessing SDAC.
Is governance at SDAC part of what you'll be looking at, just like the water authority?
That would be correct.
Okay.
Mr. Roback.
Well, I just gotta say, SDAC's been dysfunctional for a very long time, so hats off to take a look at SDAC more closely. Thank you.
Any other questions? Congratulations for specification. Doing the next one.
Oh, you're doing the next
Yeah.
I'm clear.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we are on to item 5B, which is policy review.
Okay. Hello again, Joelle Barola for the record. So this item today being presented to the committee is part of LAFCO's adopted work plan. So in order to better reflect current practices and committee preferences, this is a scheduled check-in on your committee rules and discussion on whether some updating or modernization is needed. So for the benefit of context, these rules, formerly cited as the Special District Committee rules, were established in 1971 in step with the commission creating the Special District Committee. And you do have a copy of the rules in your packets if you want to follow along. Yes. So just for some background, I wanted to show you the historical Special District members, which the formatting kind of got cut off, but here's just a historic list and roster just for your reference. This commission was created, the commission created the committee as a bridge to the pending but not yet approved legislative efforts in Sacramento to amend LAFCO law to actually seat district members on the commission, and in doing so, have district input on LAFCO activities. While legislation to seat district members on LAFCO eventually passed and took effect beginning in 1975, the committee's work has continued and remains an important resource in advising the commission. by extension, also LAFCO staff. So this has historically included providing recommendations on controversial projects, including one or more districts. So the committee's rules, specific duties and rules and tasks are detailed in that packet, and any changes require a majority affirmative vote. So the last review that was done on this was back in 2018. Now, with the proceeding in mind, I will provide a brief overview of the current rules and highlight key areas where updates might be considered. And after the presentation, we invite your feedback discussion. And again, I'm just gonna highlight some of the few, but just to reiterate, we can amend or edit any rules in the rule package. So first to start off is section 1 of the rules, which is formation and purpose. So the current language, which is shown up on the screen, the committee may consider adding clarifying language regarding how the committee advises and makes recommendations to the commission. And I'll leave this up here just for a few seconds. Then I'm going to go into the next section, which is moving on to section 2 regarding membership. So in membership, I'm going to cover 3 specific areas within this section that the committee may consider revising. So for the first section is section 2, part A, which is composition. So currently our rules specify a 16-member committee, including representatives from water, sewer, fire districts within San Diego County. The committee may evaluate whether this composition remains effective or if alternative compositions might better meet our needs. The second section that I'm going to go over is part B, which is the selection procedure. So in this, our rules outline that annual elections are held through the special district selection committee. The committee may consider alternatives in holding elections as well as related items such as recruitment and eligibility topics based on current preferences. I'll leave this up here for a few seconds as well. And lastly, part C of section 2, which is term of membership. So right here, we currently specify a term as 4 years. Members may serve more than 1 term, but it does not define term limits. The committee may consider whether introducing term limits or adjusting the term length that would better align with committee preferences. So that's for section 2, and I'm going to move on now to section 4. So section 4 covers meetings. So for this section, I will address our meetings, which there are going to be 3 specific areas within the section that the committee may consider revising. So starting off with section 4, part B, which is schedule of meetings. Our rules currently set regular meetings for the 3rd Friday of each quarter, or the 4th Friday if it conflicts with a holiday. Special meetings can be called with 24-hour notice. The committee may consider alternatives for the timing of regular and/or special meetings. Moving on to section 4, part C, which is time and place of meetings. So our current rules specify that meetings are held at the University of California Cooperative Extension starting at 9:30 a.m. We recommend aligning the rules with our current practices and with consideration of any changes based on committee preferences. And lastly, for part 4, which is section 4, part D, which is conduct of meetings. The committee currently relies on LAFCO staff to organize and present information at meetings. The committee may consider formalizing this practice or explore other alternatives. All right. The next section I'm going to cover is section 6, which is place of business. So for this one is currently our address is listed as Suite 200, 9335 Hazard Way. We need to update this to reflect our current address as 2550 Fifth Avenue, Suite 725. And this change will ensure that our rules are accurate and up to date. One more thing that I wanted to mention was in under the quorum, which I believe is part 5. So right now we have a 16-member committee, advisory committee, but quorum is listed as 5 or more, and so that's just something else to look at if you want to consider altering. But in conclusion, As a final note, we encourage you to amend or look at anything that I might have missed. I did just cover highlighted sections, but the advisory committee can look at any language, and make those edits too. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation, and if you have any questions or comments, please let me know.
It looks like we do. Mr. Smith, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Yes, under section 2, membership, under composition, they call out one water, one sewer, one fire. And it appears that the makeup of the committee also includes healthcare. And I'm wondering why healthcare is not there, or should it be considered to be there to guarantee appropriate balance in the membership. The other, well, as Mr. Roback noted, a quorum of 5 for 16 members seems a little strange, but given the number of total people that are here today, as an indication, I could somewhat understand it, particularly since it's a advisory committee. It's not a formal voting committee. Last item is section 8. I noted the amended dates. Do we have a sunset clause somewhere that says you got to review this every X number of years? 5 years, 4 years. Is there a rationale for wanting to include it? I would think there is, because a number of the issues that you've raised are valid. I mean, they're valid for this, the operation of this committee, and we ought to be able to bring them up. And I don't know what the right timing is, 4 years, 5 years, whatever, should be consistent. So those are my points. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, and thank you for sending this. I don't recall ever seeing this, so suggestion would be is if you have a new committee member that you get a copy of this so you have an idea of what you're supposed to be doing. So, there's a lot. I learned a lot of this, and I learned I'm not doing well. So, but just a couple observations. It talks about the duties and the performance. This kind of ties into what a quorum is, because I found that out as well. Does this committee, are we making recommendations to the commission? And because it says we review this information prior to the commission, but that doesn't seem to have always been the case. So,
Having, thank goodness there's no term limits. I've been here 17 years.
Interimums, I have.
Yeah, you want to plug them now. It does actually say in the purpose, 1B12, make recommendations to the commission. We have not made recommendations to the commission when we've been split, but when we have been unanimous, when I've been chair, I've actually gone and testified at commission on behalf of this committee. The Ramona MSR was one where we were all unified in our recommendations. The merger of Albrook and Rainbow, which did not happen, this committee actually came forward with a recommendation that the merger happen. So when the committee's been unanimous, the chair or the vice chair has gone on behalf of the committee. We have not necessarily been unanimous or come to recommendations on things that have been requested by staff of late. And so that maybe is something that we address. Does it need to be unanimous? That's kind of the practice that we've been having. Hard to get everybody at the table unanimous, right?
And that's kind of my point. Do we want to change this to reflect what seems to be actually happening, or do we want to? And it goes back to I've never, if this is like, and my basis of comparison is our own agency and the agencies that I've worked at, and what the committees do. They typically vet items before it goes to our board. They make recommendations to the board. And if they split, you know, we either don't bring a recommendation or we tell the entire board that they're split, but, in terms of having a quorum of 5, that seems really low to me. If we're gonna be coming with recommendations to the full commission. I don't know whether 9 is practical, so, but I just want to bring that up for discussion for the rest of the committee. Because I just want to make sure we're, you know, in our rules and regs, we actually follow what we should be doing in practice. That's where I saw some things that weren't the same. So.
Other thoughts?
Yeah, just I think the modification of the election, I think would be good as well. It says annual election, but I don't recall when the last time we actually had an election. It seems like it's a while back. And I think some clarification on membership in terms of rotating terms as well. If there's 16-member annually, and it's 4-year term, so does that mean every 4 member on a rotating basis go through the election on an annual basis? And if that's the case, I think it would be good to spell it out to make it clarify, and perhaps even better to really list out what seats, if you will, or, you know, in our case, usually what division of that, you know, in terms of when their election's up. I think having more clarity is better.
Just kind of piggyback on how I'll push this back to lack of staff. Is it even practical to have elections for this every year? I mean, that sounds like a lot of effort and resources.
Yeah, I think historically, the terms have been staggered, so you don't have the entire committee turned over at the same time. And it was like every other year.
That's what I thought too, so maybe we should, because I think if you try to do this every year, that's a pretty significant burden on their staff. Maybe change the policy to reflect something that's more practical, like every 2 years.
And I would appreciate feedback from staff as well in terms of what's practical.
So on formation for this, going back to making recommendations to the commission, is everybody here comfortable that stays in and reflects that this committee will make recommendations to the commission?
Well, I guess I'm a little concerned that the only time we make a recommendation like that is if we are unanimous.
We could do it, Mr. Bush
Yeah.
said.
And that I think is reasonable. Very difficult to get unanimous approval on something, but it should be, recommendation should be forwarded to LAFCO, even if we're not unanimous about it, so that they understand what kind of feelings on both sides of the question, on both sides of the recommendation there are. And then the LAFCO commission can do with that what they feel. But I think that's, you know, our job is to provide those recommendations, and I see us not being really effective if we only provide recommendations where we're unified on it.
Okay. Is there general support for that?
Yeah, and if you look under section 5, I noticed that they have number of votes required to carry action. That's probably where we would modify, but I also want to give Key an opportunity to respond as well.
So I was, and thank you, so I was listening to the initial comments, and so one way, which are very helpful. And so what we're looking to do is get your feedback, draft up some changes and bring it to you at the next meeting. But one way to perhaps look at this is to simply hit restart. You have a policy that dates back to early 1970s when there were probably about 150 independent special districts in San Diego. You now have about, I think, 80 independent special districts, give or take. And so one question or a set of questions would be is 16 a relic in of itself? Should the number be lower? Should you address this idea that maybe it's okay to have members on the committee from the same district? Is there regional interest in mind? Right now, as Oliver noted, you've got this one baseline requirement that you have water, wastewater, fire. Oliver mentioned, well, what about healthcare? Good question, or good inquiry. Another way to look at it is, do you want to like ensure some geographic representation in the county? I would certainly encourage you to go down the path that I thought I heard most of you going down, which is, let's start considering making recommendations irrespective of unanimity, because I could tell you at least one commissioner wanted this group to make a recommendation on Fallbrook and Rainbow, and was disappointed that they didn't get one. They understood why you didn't do it. Our commission was split too, but it was expected, and I think desired, that this group provide some input on that. How you go about setting the agendas, how often you meet, the role of LAFCO staff. So importantly, you are making recommendations to the commission. Ideally, we're just simply the vehicle to hear your comments and then transmit them with whatever personal message the vice chair and chair want to make. And there's going to be, we have the example with the Leucadia recycled water issue, where this group did have a different recommendation than staff, which was fine. And I think that actual process worked quite well. But I would encourage you to think about just hitting new, looking at these 4 topics or 5 topics Joel's covered about composition, elections, meeting places, tasks, perhaps also when you want to create committees, and just say, if you're going to start from scratch, how would you do it now? Because if you bring whatever policy updates you want, the commission's just going to sign off on this. So this is your opportunity to set it down.
Right, any other, Mr. Marshall?
Just a suggestion, just because would be better if we provided written comments to either Kim or LAFCO staff for discussion, something that you can frame up based on kind of consensus you're hearing from the committee. And kind of stretch it out over, instead of having it ready to go next quarter, the quarter after that, and maybe work that way, because it's a big bite.
Yes.
So that's just a suggestion, but I'll go along with whatever my colleagues in the committee want to do.
I would agree, it's a big bite, especially when you got 8 of 16 currently here. Talking about this, so.
But we have a quorum still.
And to your point, I do agree, it is a big bite. Would it be worthwhile to form an ad hoc committee or group?
I think that's an excellent idea. You can volunteer.
I'll volunteer, Kim.
All right, all right, I've got Mr. Smith, Mr. Bushy, Mr. Lau, and I'll participate as well. I feel very strongly about something he brought up earlier, is geographic representation. I think it is important that we have from all over the county and as many different types of entities as possible. So I would like to see like kind of like there's a minimum for each of each agency. There should be a minimum for geographic as well. What about term limits? We're gonna, anyone have any thoughts on that to get to the subcommittee?
We're already at 50, we've been at 15 for a while, we haven't filled it out.
It's not like everyone's knocking on the door.
That is exactly my point, is the purpose of the committee is to provide recommendations, ongoing recommendations. And so you need a rather large cross-section, whether it be regional, whether it be whether fire or other agencies, to be able to make a recommendation that can be considered acceptable by all of those groups. Understanding that there may be a recommendation where one of those particular groups may not agree. And as long as that's pointed out in the transmission of that recommendation to the LAFCO commission, I see no problem with it. So
I don't think there's a need for a term on this, but just kind of a little tip. Do we wanna, if we form the ad hoc committee, do we wanna still get input from the rest of the committee and then kind of have the ad hoc committee kind of consolidate the consensus among that? That might be a good way to go.
I've been taking notes. I've been taking notes so far, so I'd like if there is input to give it now, and then we can take it and run with it.
But you gotta do that,
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sure. I didn't do it long.
You need it when there's a fire.
No water. Go to Lake, no explain.
Okay, any other, Mr. Rovak?
So on the regular LAFCO committee, there's no term limits there, correct?
No terms.
No, but they have to get reelected and that's specified, yeah.
Right, okay.
What do we do as well?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say too, yeah, I think term limits in general have shown to be, although they sound really good in theory, have not proven to be the most effective, of course, you have your Congress and Senate and everything else is such a good thing, but I think in general, certainly at the state level and even local level, they haven't proven to be overly effective, so. The reality is people do get to, they have to be reelected, so, there's a democratic process involved here, so just trying to see the reason for changing it.
So, another issue that was brought up was qualifications. Right now it's staff or board member. Any desire to change that or have any qualifications? Changes?
What's the downside of a member of the public? And I just asked the question, trying to understand, are our recommendations so specific, so technical, that it takes someone in the agencies in order to understand them and be able to make decisions? Or is it reasonable to have somebody from the outside that is not a member of any of these agencies have input? I'd like to hear the feeling of the others on this.
Start with Mr. Rovak and
So my comment on that, although I don't think it's a bad thing, Oliver, we always, like in all of our board meetings, at our agency level, whatever it is, the public always has, an opportunity to give input, so. I don't think, there could have been someone here today giving input on any of these matters and weren't. And it's all publicly noticed as well, so it's input versus a vote. That's the difference.
Yeah, my only thought on that is, I'm not adverse to having a public member, but this committee is designed to provide a special district perspective. So it's very specific to that. It's just like I assume the city advisory committee would be the same. So you could have a member of the public, but I think we're focused on giving the perspective of the various agencies that make up the special districts.
Yeah, I would kind of just add on to the point that Paul made. I think that, I think the commission is looking at this committee to provide more technically sound recommendation for them to make an informed decision. Again, I'm not averse to public input, but also looking at the makeup of the commission as well as the commission itself has a public member there to provide really the true votes, because again, this committee is providing recommendation, not reading vote per se.
I think we have a lot of input to run with. We'll maybe get a Zoom or meeting to go formalize this before our next meeting. I actually, one other,
Well, I was just gonna say, one thing that we could do at staff, and it's a question to the chair, is Joelle could staff the ad hoc committee, but, would you be interested in having that ad hoc committee have a meeting in public where we're live casting, and that way there's more discussion. I think you have options when it comes to ad hoc, whether you want to make it available to the public or simply have it almost kind of an internal discussion. So that direction would be helpful.
Any preference on the ad hoc being an ad hoc or a live broadcast?
I have no problem with live broadcast. The only ad hoc is not subject.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we're fine, and we're set up where we can host that pretty well with our system if they want to use our facility.
Having staff facilitate would be.
I mean, recently I gotten to witness a few meetings where there were live broadcasts that got out of control, and I'm concerned about that, like you get people asking weird questions that don't pertain to the subject matter. I think it kind of goes along with what Al was saying, that you need people on the OPEC committee that know, what the subject is and have a little bit of experience. I mean, I think the majority of us are elected, we're from the public, even though I happen to be a civil engineer that spent 30 years in the water industry, but still I'm elected, and any a teacher or anybody can replace me, so there is public input participation by default. And having live broadcast, I think you might be asking for too much trouble, It's not what I've seen recently.
Alright, how about we compromise and do the ad hoc work, and then we bring it back, and the presentation of the work be live broadcast. Alright, the place of business seems to be quite easy. I can't remember the last time we had a meeting there. I think maybe when I first met you.
Yeah.
And so that should be easy. And then I also think one of the topics we're gonna have later is about rotating the location of these meetings. And if we do end up going that route, it would be nice to incorporate that into the bylaws as well. All right, so the ad hoc, we will coordinate with the staff and get them on the books and come back with some recommendations. Thank you guys all for that.
Good luck, Joelle. So,
Thank you.
so welcome aboard.
You did with the smart operating hats.
Okay,
We should have the 17th November be artificial intelligence. Just thinking here.
I'm gonna have to, no, yeah, I'm sorry, restrooms are at that door. Okay, we are now on to item 5C, updated rolling 5-year study schedule. So,
Yes, thank you. The committee should have Priscilla Monpower on behalf of LAFCO staff and the executive officer. The committee should have in front of them in the packet as 5C an updated study schedule. The commission just recently updated this in August in step with syncing it up with the adopted work plan. There were just a few changes that I want to highlight as we present this item. So one, we adjusted the coverage period, so we've shifted it, the rolling study schedule, to be from 2024 to 2028 to now 2025 to 2029. And then currently we've now adjusted the rolling study schedule to be, so it encompasses 5 years. The first 2 years focus in on what we have adopted in the work plan through the commission. So this provides just a little bit more flexibility in being able to accomplish the large task of prioritizing these large projects, like you heard earlier today from our consultant Chris Kate and our analyst Joelle. We have 3 large projects that we're wanting to working as part of those first 2 years. One, as I had mentioned earlier, is part of the Q&A. We've added SDAC, and that was the direction of the commission. Another change in those first 2 years is that we have now combined some of the regional studies. So you'll notice that, and I anticipate a question or two on how that's going to impact it. So I do anticipate it's going to delay that a little bit, just as we kind of now, instead of focusing in on Encinitas, the city of Encinitas, and then some special districts in that region, now we've separated it. So now we're focusing in on city of Encinitas, and then as a part two, we'll focus in on the special districts that are within that region. And then the same thing within Vista and San Marcos. So we're separating city of San Marcos, city of Vista, and then part two will cover the special districts, so Vista Irrigation District, One Sanitation District, etc. And then you'll note the MSRs, as I mentioned, that we have already covered today, and then also Oceanside and Del Mar. I've spoken previously to Member Bushy and Chair Warner about your MSRs and how those were kind of in the pipeline, so those will be delayed just a bit as we kind of now pivot to include other special districts. And then moving on to the next 3 years, so those are more of a, it's just a telegraphing tool for the remaining districts that are within this list and saying, hey, we have it on our mind, we want to get there, but they're just not prioritized as of yet on the commission's work plan. And then once, we update that work plan every year, once the commission decides to add those MSRs onto the work plan, we'll pivot and ensure that we notify you that you're in the pipeline and we're ready to kind of start that MSR process with your agency. So that's all I have for you. Quick update on that. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
I know I do. So a lot of us are traditionally used to getting our own MSR, right? And you guys are doing this regionally, and I like that, right? Because we're not in our own silos anymore. Just for like understanding, so Liebenheim is going to be part of the Carlsbad and Encinitas region, but we also serve portions of San Marcos and Solana Beach City, San Diego, Rancho, Santa Fe. Is our MSR component also going to be mentioned in those regions as well as a water and wastewater provider, or is it going to reference back to the Carlsbad and Encinitas MSR? And I know I'm probably not the only entity that crosses multiple jurisdictions.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, right? Is kind of as we go through the MSR process and trying to figure out, okay, regionally, which special districts are we going to cover and focus in on as part of this one. But really great point. I do anticipate being the latter, and Kim can correct me if I'm wrong, but I anticipate being the latter of, okay, we focused in on Liebenheim Municipal, or Water District as part of the Carlsbad and Encinitas region, and then when we get to San Marcos and Vista and touch on sort of the geography, we can kind of call attention to Liebenheim also provides services in these areas, but has been covered as part of a different MSR.
So our focus and effort will be in this first one, and it won't be like we have to redo it in subsequent years. Okay, correct. All right. Yes. Okay.
Maybe to reduce some of your work, I noticed that in 27-28, you have CSA 17 or 69, the ambulance.
Oh.
And I thought that got resolved. So just take some stuff off your plate.
We're trying to do more, we're always trying to do more.
I'm trying to help you out.
Thank you.
Just a question, has there ever been an MSR or anything equivalent for the airports?
That is one item that I was supposed to mention as part of my update, and you caught me. So you'll notice at the very end on 28, 29, San Diego County Airports has now been added onto that list.
Yeah, my question was, has it ever been
Oh,
reviewed before?
I don't believe so, no.
Oh, joy. I do have a question, not that I'm trying to add more to your workload necessarily, but it seems like at least the direction of LAFCO is started reviewing the regional entities that are similar to JPAs, if you will. So really in Lake County, we do have a couple of JPAs that's really wastewater related, and I'm not even sure how's that fit in within the work plan and all that stuff. So just a question.
The Salmon, JPA, Cena, JPA.
Yeah, I think that one I'm gonna defer over to
And
Kim.
and it's.
That's a blind spot right now for us.
There's in East County, there's a newly formed East County JPA, all that stuff.
So we, Priscilla, that's something, as we go into the next work plan and study schedule, that's an outstanding comment about the core JPAs. Sandag being one, but these others, so outstanding input.
Kind of a follow-on to the email I sent to you, King. Should there be a list of, these are the area, you said there are 80 plus special districts and so on. Should there be a list of, right now, the following are not being considered for whatever reason? In the case of the Valley Center, you said because we just had one. And it isn't every 5 years, there is no specific timeframe I'm aware of MSR review. Would that be of value? And then you can look at that, and I see that as kind of linking into JPAs and other things, so you can say, oh, these are on the list we're not looking at, however, we can take this and this and this and this and group them all together, and that becomes one MSR effort. So it would be helpful to know, we know what's on the list. It would be helpful to know what specifically is not on the list.
Thank you for that comment.
Do you have enough resources and staff I'm just knowing how much goes into one of these MSRs and looking at the number and the depth and including the regional entities. Is this outside of the normal scope of what AFCO does? It seems like it's a lot more than I've seen in previous years happening at one time.
Yeah, I think, to your comment, I think we are, trying to work with, one, the commission has directed us to focus our attention on, certain MSRs. We have other MSRs that have been kind of repeating in that we have been trying to adapt to some staff changes, and we brought along some consultants to ensure that we try to keep up with the pace. Yeah, we do have a lot on our plate, but Keith has anything else to comment, then I'll defer to him.
Well, and so here's a budget comment that you could all appreciate. So we've been dealing with this for the last few years about what's the balance at LAFCO between having full-time perennial staff versus using consultants. So I think, and I know the budget has ebbed and flowed in terms of how many allocated positions. Right now, the commission has landed on 8 full-time positions. We've seen an internal adjustment where right now, where we used to have 3 or 4 budgeted office support positions, now we're down to 1, Commission Clerk Erica Sellen, and the rest are going towards the analytical side of the shop to help with these MSRs. I think our investment in people like Adam Wilson, Chris Cate, and others is reflecting that we see the next 5 years as a lot of MSR investment time. And then after that, once we get through this initial round where we hopefully make it around the county, it's probably going to take more than 5 years. Then the commission will reflect as to, well, is this the model that's working where we have 8 full-time staff and probably, $500,000 being spent on consultants, or are we ready to start expanding staff? So it's an interesting question that I was thinking about myself. What's the sweet spot? Fortunately, persons like Chris, Kate, and Adam Wilson are available to us right now. But there's only so many consultants that do LAFCO, that are familiar with LAFCO. And then those consulting firms that we work with take our staff, hence Carol Arlene's no longer with us. I know it's a vicious cycle, but nevertheless, it's an interesting cycle.
Thank you. Any other questions on the MSR schedule? All right, thank you for that. And Mr. Rebecca.
So although I'm known to advocate for consolidations on a regular basis, one of the things this is much more uncommon would be a disincorporation. And, I was thinking, I've thought about this quite a bit over the years. The city of Lemon Grove in particular has always struggled financially. They've been a city, I think, since the early seventies. I was, thinking maybe, when you're looking at the South Coast region in the 26, 27 tentative, so you're down there in Chula Vista National City, which is right by Lemon Grove. If you want to include Lemon Grove in that analysis.
Any other comments on item 5C? Thank you. And then I think our last one, Ms. McCarty, you are also up for, which is 5D, the special district spotlight.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this last item, as it's detailed in your agenda report, is just a quick little proposal by staff. So we recognize the hard work that you all do as part of the committee, but also on the day-to-day, and we thought it'd be really nice that we incorporate something as part of these quarterly meetings to include perhaps, if the committee is interested, hosting us and the rest of the committee as part of the quarterly meetings, and in doing so, you'd have the opportunity to, you know, kind of show off what you've been up to, initiatives, projects, you know, spark some creativity amongst the group. It gives LAFCO staff an opportunity to kind of have a little insight on what you do on your day-to-day, other than us just kind of coming to you and saying, but I'm a start for you. It would be really nice to just, you know, have it in a different light. And it will kind of help with also just kind of having this rotating idea of, you know, someone else is hosting and you get to show off your facility if you'd like as part of a tour. Chair Thorner has kindly offered to do a tour after this meeting and to kind of kick it off. But yeah, short and sweet for you, but that's the proposal for you. Just thinking it'd be nice to kind of, you know, have you do a special district spotlight.
And that can give you a jump on your MSRs too.
It'll get a jump on that side for you.
See how efficient this operation is, so we'll have-
Well, here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, trust me.
Alright, so should we maybe propose a schedule for each of the quarterly? I would suggest we rotate. Another reason why we should have geographic diversity, so that we're all not stuck in the same traffic all the time.
So I was thinking that one of my first thoughts was perhaps as part of, you know, bringing it to you, we could maybe sign up, you know, 2 or maybe the next 3 meetings, or maybe even 4, you know, see how much traction you get here today. But if not, I know that Chair Thorner had mentioned that as part of the review of the rules, perhaps that is incorporated as part of that. So if you don't want to commit today, we'll have you commit at a later time. Nonetheless, still commit.
I can volunteer so far.
Okay,
For the next one.
alright.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
Very much so.
Alright, so the next meeting is Sweetwater. Would there be anyone who'd be willing to volunteer for the one thereafter?
We can Southampton too.
We'll bring it back north and you can use mine.
Thank you.
We're always up for, so if you're in need of filling a void where you have to go back to the central area. Or actually that north area is some, but yeah, just we're available.
It was nice driving 14 minutes to get here.
Yeah.
That'll help too.
So I'm actually seeing a fire, wastewater thing north and south happening in the signups weekend. For my medical, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you
I still like paramedic.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I see, Mr. Martinez, Mr. McQuaid, Mr. Sims, Mr. Bush, will go north, south, and move forward. All right.
Thank you. So I think
Down in south.
Was it?
Mr. Sims.
Oh, no.
Okay.
live in a bubble with your bicycle?
There's no way to fire right now.
Because you have an excellent service.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Alright, so with that, we are actually on to committee member reports. Does anyone have anything for the committee, anyone at their agency that they would like to report on?
I just have one thing, Kim, and it's affiliated with you. Just, we're doing a little trial, what we'll call a hands-on tour. We're calling a student career day. And it's 3 agencies and no key. We didn't get your permission to do this. I apologize. But we're just gonna do a tour, and what we're trying to do is attract or create an awareness for young people of the water wastewater industry. And we're in partnership with San Leo, which is that other JPA, the hidden JPA. And we're gonna, San Leo's gonna host it, but we're gonna have like live tours where the students are gonna be able to actually work the equipment with turn valves with the supervision of our staff. So that's gonna be on October 10th. And we're hoping it goes well, and we've got a lot of folks signed up. And yeah, again, just to really create an awareness of our industry so people know there's a viable career in what we do. So just food for thought, Kim. So
We're getting in high school and junior college students for the day. So 3 agencies over there. I'm hopeful if it works, maybe it's something that gets replicated. Keep the, no pun intended, but the pipeline coming. Anybody else have any other announcements? Okay. Are you having a good fire season?
I can show you my phone right now.
Okay. All right. Sorry I asked. Mr. Orlando.
So I wanted to mention, for what it's worth, we had a vacancy on our board. One of our board members, someone retired, Tim Smith, many of you know, and we were very fortunate in, well, we had 3 applications and 2 we actually interviewed because the third one just was not responsive at that point. But the gentleman we appointed, Frank Rivera, super well qualified, used to be the city engineer in Chula Vista for many years, so really knows the stuff. So I'm sure any board member, general manager can appreciate getting a good, board member on like that, really quickly, so.
I've heard nothing but great things about him too.
Yeah, seems like a good guy.
Congrats on that.
Yeah.
With that, we are now on to the executive officer report.
Thank you, Chair Thorner. So a couple of things as I was writing down my notes. So some composition changes at LAFCO. One is Andy Vanderlyn, who had served as a very esteemed and tenured member, as a public member on LAFCO, retired, as some of you know. Harry Mathis, former city council member, but longtime alternate public member on LAFCO, moved up recently to the regular seat, and he's going to do that for the next year before he's going to say goodbye to LAFCO. So he's giving one last year to us. But we recently appointed a new alternate public member, Bridget Browning, who brings a unique background as being the head of Labor Council here in San Diego. So a new, different perspective emerging on the commission. You met Joelle. She's one of 3 new employees that we recently brought on through Priscilla's good work. Megan Trainer is also an analyst 1. She's right now on a trip to Tijuana. And then actually today, although he did not come, our very first kind of communications associate, Aiden, help me with the last name? Velasquez is starting at LAFCO, and kind of taking a cue from comments that Mark has given us over the years, and probably applies to everyone. Communicating what we actually do at LAFCO has always been a bit of a low priority, but the commission saw fit to create a brand new position where essentially serve as our public information officer, but in particular, get out the word using social media, really start investing in our website. So that's a new and kind of exciting change for LAFCO. Fire services. So As many of you know, Stephen Abbott, retired from North County Fire, has been our fire service advisor at LAFCO on a consultant basis. He has decided to retire again. So Adam Wilson right now is making the rounds, interviewing some potential replacements. So in particular, Dave or Mike, if you know any retired fire chiefs who are looking to kind of stay in the business, please let Adam know. And then I did want to just give an update on the Port of San Diego. So as I reported perhaps at the last or second to last meeting, the commission in March took action to formally apply oversight over the Port of San Diego, or the San Diego Unified Port District. We ultimately agreed to a tolling process to negotiate some of the talking points, if you will. I am hopeful that an agreement actually will be made by the end of the calendar year. That's relevant to all of you, since all of you pay into LAFCO, because the port will join your ranks as an independent special district, and presumably, again, if all is successful, then would be eligible to serve not only on LAFCO as a special district, but perhaps their staff and or board members would be eligible to serve on this advisory committee. So my hope is we come to an agreement by the end of the year, and if so, those changes will occur. So that's just an overview of some things on our mind. Thank you.
If you get that agreement, will they be subject to MSR as well?
Yes, and largely that's part of the discussion.
Oh, yeah, go back, yes.
With the addition of a port, that will probably help your staffing budget a little bit. Flex. Talking about people retiring and leaving, I'm gonna retire next year in June 31st.
Very good.
I read briefly in the bylaws how that works. I don't know where I am in this term, but I would be happy to volunteer my replacement to fill this seat until the elections come up.
So if there is a vacancy midterm, the chair can make like,
Right.
yeah, okay. So we probably need to work out the election timeframe first as well, but happy to talk to you about that.
I have no idea where I am in my term.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. And congratulations on your retirement. July's a long ways off. Just a little bit.
So I just wanted to thank Keen and the staff for doing such excellent social media. And again, it's not social media for the sake of being social media. I had this conversation with our, general manager, a former general manager 7 years ago. And he just didn't believe in social media. I'm not for that. I told him, I said, it's not what you believe in, it's the way the public wants to get their information. So you might not want to get your information from, Twitter and Facebook, but, like it or not, that's the way the general public does. So you need to have a good presence on that. So I want to say, that's off, again, the Keenan and the staff for doing that. And not only just doing it, but, unlike a lot of water agencies that, their social media, by and large, might consist of, I'm exaggerating here, of course, turn off your sprinklers while it's raining, But, LAFCO, really, I won't say pushes the envelope, because that might be overstating it, but it isn't just boring. And, to my credit too, I highlight some unnamed people that LAFCO staff that fund themselves in the media as well.
Those unnamed people appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think that's a huge compliment. So
It
it was one of the first things you brought up when you got
It is, I think you're doing a great job. Great job.
Congratulations on that. All right, anything else for the good of the order? All right, with that, we are adjourned.